If they don't make any design changes and just give us shittier weak auras, sure as they will kill Mythic Plus for casuals. I mean, yeah, I mean, if they remove all these tools that they've given us or allowed us to use and then designed content around that and then removed those tools or made them worse and then didn't change the design of their content, then that would obviously be bad. But pretty much all of their rhetoric has been around, we're doing this so we can change the design of content, which is also what people have been saying they wanted, right? The whole like arms race thing. A lot of it makes sense. The issue is a lot of Blizzard's theories for things, you read them and you're like, that totally makes sense, but then it like doesn't work out that way. Like even to this day, the like Mythic Plus mobs recast their important skills if they are stopped and not interrupted. The theory and design philosophy behind that makes total sense. It like you read it and you're like, I totally get why you're doing this change, but it didn't work and that change sucks, you know? So it just depends on the implementation. And it's not like it would be reasonable to have a ton of trust for Blizzard to like implement all these things the right way, because like what have you looked at recently where like they released something brand new and it just works, you know? Like Plunderstorm basically, which is like not even like, that's like not even WoW. Cooldown manager? Ain't no way, right? Why is he still small? Get big. Wait, it's so true. You know, you're right, dude. I'm here. I'm getting fucking huge right now. I used to be so small and now I'm big. Private auras at first were a mess. I mean, private auras were at first a mess, but they were never even like, private auras were a failure. They never solved what they, I mean, honestly, if private auras succeeded, this shit would have, that's happening right now would have never happened. You know what I mean? That it's all, this is the nuclear option because private auras couldn't make us stop using the weak auras in fights. What does it have? The liquid add-on team figured out how to break the proposed changes? I don't know. Maybe we'll read it because we'd have a lot of time to do that. But that's the thing I don't want. Like I actually hate the idea that like where it's possible to be broken in any way. Like I'd rather just know that none of that shit is possible and then just rip it natty. But the reality is you have to examine every single possible way to break it to still use your timelines, to still use any weak auras. Because if your opponents do that and you don't, you just fucking lose, you know? So it's like, even though you'd love to do it natty, you just never know what your opponents are going to do. And like we've done this whole like thing with Echo for the last 6 years where they're definitely more eager than we used to be fucking full natty, bro. Like they are a lot more eager to like, which totally makes sense competitively, to make sure you have every tool available to you. They're willing to go farther than we are, clearly. So like, I don't want to go into a raid just thinking about like, we're planning on doing something natty and it's like, what kind of fucking forbidden third-party shit is Echo doing to figure this out? Fire Rack and Mythic Soaks work just fine. That's exactly a mechanic how private auras should be used. I don't want a weak aura to tell me what to do on such a simple mechanic. Yeah, that's one of the few examples of private auras working exactly as intended, and they were good that they existed, for sure. Without private auras on that mechanic, you have an assignment for it, as trivial as it is. That being said, those examples are few and far between, and they don't really solve the main issue that private auras had, which is that like any assignment thing, if it's hard enough, you're just gonna use a macro. So like, yeah, you can make something like that work on Fire Rack, but that's just an easy mechanic. But you just can't always make super easy mechanics, and if they're ever super hard, you're just always gonna do it. Brood Twister is what happens when they design a fight with weak auras in mind and miss the mark. Yeah, and like, think about private auras. Like, private auras are supposed to be the solution for a Brood Twister type mechanic, right? But like, they just made private auras not work on that mechanic because they knew everyone would make a macro. It's just like, that mechanic is the biggest proof that just doesn't work. It just doesn't fucking work. I'm assuming we watched the Dratty vid already? Nah, I just fucking ripped it live. We're chilling. I've been busy today until now. Had a little workout, and then I got a hockey game later, so I'm gonna stream for a little bit. First of all, I need to see, so what is there to consume here? There's an interview, but then I read like was it a summary that I saw a tweet of? Or did like Blizzard make a blue post about this? Or is it all from the interview? Dude, what a fucking picture for this thread. What an insane post. I mean, this is cherry picking a little bit, because I think like someone who doesn't play WoW sees this picture and they're like, what the fuck happened? Because they assume this stuff's all on your screen at one time, like it actually was back in like Wrath. But like, this isn't actually how your UI looks. This is a little bad faith, but I get the point. Following last month's episode of Wowcast, that was me, by the way, which revealed that Blizzard was looking to restrict the capability of some combat add-ons. Senior game director Ian Hazzikostas expanded on the newfound philosophy and exactly what kind of functions won't make the cut. Okay, proposed adjustments Okay, I guess we could just read the cliff notes, but I usually like to hear the exact words from them. Yeah, exact words way better than, actually, wait, is this? Yep, too bright. It's unfortunate. I did actually want to read this, but yeah, okay. Let's just go ahead and just go over the cliff notes real quick, and then we'll read more into what they said after. So here's the proposed adjustments, which, by the way, I heard a lot of people freaking out about this, and I think it depends on when they do it, because it was kind of open-ended in the interview. They were like, we're going to implement this when we have it figured out, which, I mean, my impression from him being there was like, this could take fucking years to implement. This is not something that's coming in the next patch. And it's also very likely that this stuff isn't going to happen at the same time. Like, they're going to do like a few at a time, right? Looks like pre-patch. It would be... So I spent a lot of time with him and Morgan Day that I am not under the impression that this is even going to happen like at the beginning of next expansion. They know this is going to take a fucking long time. Yeah, just to be clear. So this is not an immediate issue, which is good that they're putting this out here now to get feedback on it as well. Okay, here we go. Incoming heals won't be trackable. Okay, I'm just going to state early, I'm never going to refer to PvP at all during this. Like, it's like, for example, what I want to say is this doesn't fucking matter in PvE. Like, even if you're like if you're okay in a dungeon, there's only one healer in a dungeon. Like in a raid, people's like raid frames, you're not making a split-second decision because you see a little green thing showing that someone's getting a heal. But you know what? I'm also not a healer, so I won't maybe this is bigger than I think, but I think this is like kind of not huge. Like not a huge deal. There are also ways around this even within the game, if you wanted to get around it. But it's probably super annoying and would be weird to deal with. So I just don't even think this matters. And adjusting it, they could choose to do this or not to do this. My guess is to remove other things that do make sense and they do want to be gone. This is something where that functionality is also affected. Like, I highly doubt they're like, this is the thing that has to be gone. Like, it's just simply not that impactful. I bet it's like a collateral damage from other things, but also not a big deal. No tracking group abilities or other players' cooldowns. So I think a big reason why this is being targeted specifically is, I think PvP, like, we had Venruki on the podcast, and I unfortunately see PvPers tweet every now and then, where I usually filter all of WoW off of my Twitter. Like, I don't see any WoW content on my Twitter ever, except every now and then PvPers are on there. But yeah, so I see this all the time. Like, as far as I can tell, PvPers really do not like how good it is to just like know when their kick is up, when their kidney is up, when their CDs are up. Like, that kind of tracking is like, people miss the old days. But also it's hard to tell because PvP is so majorly dominated by like people who've been playing forever. So maybe it's just some nostalgia thing. I don't know how, but like, clearly there's an issue in wanting to start PvPing, and if you're just fucking natty PvPing and someone else is tracking every fucking thing that your team is doing, like, they're gonna have an advantage over you. And those are the kind of things where if you apply that to PvE, you'd want to remove that as well. So totally get it. Now, so there's a raid leader element to this, which I'll get into. But I think Mythic Plus, for most players, most non-raid leader guys, I think Mythic Plus is the scenario where people interact with this the most, right? Like, most common UI packages now, if you're doing Mythic Plus, have like the stop groups. I think maybe the most common is like an interrupt tracker. I think this would include interrupts, right? So you wouldn't be able to track other people's interrupts. Well, the interrupts are a separate thing. I think people have been tracking other people's interrupts for a long time. I think the like showing of other people's cooldowns in dungeons, I actually think removing that, if you can obviously design the content differently. Like, the amount of stops that are required, obviously they removed a ton of that this season, but there's still issues with it. Like, there's the complexity of Mythic Plus has gone down. The amount of kicks, the amount of stops or whatever, if you remove that kind of shit, would have to be removed. Not removed, but like significantly less. And I don't know if that would be a bad thing, right? Like right now, you feel like if you're a high level player, you feel like you need to see that stuff because there's a need for it. But if there's less of a need for it, you wouldn't care as much. And I think another reason for these add-ons, like removing add-ons, is you are lowering the difference between the super optimized via their UI and maybe their player skill, and like the more average player who's not spending that time. This will directly address that for sure. I don't know if it's the way to go, but like it does do that. Like I would honestly say the only people who really get major benefits from tracking other people's shits are honestly like really high key players. Because I think there's a lot of people who actually track this stuff, like no flame, but like that shit's just on their screen for no reason. They're not even really looking at it. They just like downloaded someone's shit and it's just there, but like they're just turbo. It doesn't matter. Like they're not looking at it. And then at a lower level, it's just not even needed, but higher level players for sure. But this will lower the skill gap between higher level players and like people doing 12s and 13s and stuff, which is probably good. For raid leading, I kind of like this. Maybe you'd assume the opposite answer from me. Like if you guys watch me watch like Firedep's POV or something, and I have him like have the CDs shown, like I rely on that because it's really easy to do. But like some of the most fun I've ever had was on Stone Legion Generals, like terrible fucking raid boss, because the boss had crazy spell sequence and it was like super RNG and it was different every pull, but like you could memorize what the like priority was for certain spells if multiple could be cast at any given time, and you felt like you had a massive impact because you were able to like do something with your brain that helped your team that maybe someone else wasn't doing. If I am tasked on basically remembering when things are coming off cooldown and when they're not, I think I'd be really good at that. And I think that would be one of the ways for me to like outplay another guild with my job, rather than having everything just like super fucking streamlined. That is assuming you don't do some like crazy 10-head workaround with like getting a bunch of different icons and shit. Like you could probably... Have you guys seen Scripe's UI? What Scripe does is he takes... Like he's watching like, I don't know, Hopeful or Gingy or someone, and he can see at the top of their screen like basically a Exorcist raid tools of like basically every cooldown you'd ever want to see, but it's not actually on that person's UI. And it's capturing certain parts of people's screens or his screen on an offline character and then just porting it onto a monitor. It's an extreme solution, but especially locally, you could do that if you like made everyone's UI have to have those buttons in the same spot. You could like have a second monitor, have like just everyone's shit there. But that sounds corny. I wouldn't like that. I honestly just want to remember it natty. I think that would be really fun for me, and I think it would be in a world where raid leaders have less and less skill expression because you just automate everything. Really excited about the prospect of having more agency for sure. So I'm actually a fan of that for me personally. And then PvP, I think PvPers are largely going to be a fan of this. The kick tracking might be interesting because that was something people were doing before, like the crazy weak aura packages. Now, the kick tracker in Mythic Plus, that's something that people just had on their UI forever. But obviously, and we'll maybe get through this when they make statements down here, and they have a lot more context, which is very important. They're obviously going to design the game differently. That being said, this isn't all coming out soon. It's probably not all coming out at one time. But man, when the first patch where the add-ons like this are actually restricted and we're relying on this stuff in game, there's going to be some figuring out that has to happen. And it might be pretty rough where Blizzard's figuring out exactly what we're capable of without all this shit. It could, I mean, I could see it being like aggressively easy or just crazy fucking like the game is just so much different and it could turn people off too. I just think that's going to be interesting. But, okay, no tracking of specialized buffs or debuffs. Now, this is interesting. When we were talking to Ian about this, he kind of made it seem like we want to remove all the stuff that's bad. We want to keep the UI customization add-ons functioning. But this is basically saying, nah, but we want to build this in the default UI. So we have a few players that use like basically default in raid, and they do a pretty good job with it. But I would say this is maybe the biggest issue I have with default UI is the buff system and debuff system is absolute nonsense. Like you have 30 buffs. Maybe you want to look at like 3 or 4 of them to like actually track something. Now it sounds like they want to build this into the UI. Cool. But like, it's got to be good. And we have to have the agency. They can't build it in themselves. They can't decide whether certain buffs should be tracked or not. Kind of like it is on the personal resource display right now. Like, you know how there's certain things that pop up, but like it kind of does, if you understand the classes, it kind of doesn't make sense. Like there's things you really want to be there and they're not, and there's things that are totally fucking irrelevant that are on there, right? So this can't be something Blizzard decides themselves. It has to be customizable. However, there's add-ons that they could directly rip and just take their shit and do this. Like, you just do a slash command inside of WoW, and like you can just click a list of buffs that show up in a special frame, and there's ways to make this pretty good that don't exist in the game right now at all. But this was actually something I thought they were going to leave in. I imagine with him making this statement that they realized that for them to actually effectively remove the other stuff, they probably also had to get rid of this too. So big holdout on this. My only concern is, so the cooldown manager alone should replace a ton of what people want to use with add-ons. Like that cool little weak aura package everyone has at the front of their screen. The top stuff is all super important cooldowns. The bottom stuff is like utility defensives and stuff. And that's what the cooldown manager is supposed to be. That is what I believe the cooldown manager will eventually be. But when it released, it was terrible, right? So just goes to show like how long this is going to take. It's going to take a long time for this specialized buffs and debuffs to like actually work correctly. So yeah, and actually I think maybe a lot of the hesitance to all of these proposed changes is just purely like the biggest thing recently that was supposed to replace a bunch of add-ons release was terrible, and it is just simply not good enough. And if all this stuff gets introduced and the add-on version of it, even initially, is just way better than the Blizzard one, that's going to make the game significantly worse for a lot of people that use this stuff, right? So like they've got to be really fucking careful, which is why, I mean, it's not surprising that this is not coming for fucking years. I hope people realize that. I think a lot of the, it's good that people are responding very aggressively to this, because there should be like really good communication about it. But these things are all not coming out at the same time, and they're going to come out for years. And I think that's necessary, because especially seeing the cooldown manager, like if I were to bet money right now, I bet the cooldown manager is going to be fucking a banger in a year and a half. Just like most other things that they release, it takes actually like an expansion or like almost 2 years for things to get released in a bad state and then end up being great. But they do end up being great, right? They can end up being great. But the shit's fucking bad right now. I hope it's a major focus for the beta to have the cooldown manager, or hopefully it doesn't even take that long to just, because it doesn't even seem that hard to do, to like actually work like any of these weak aura packages do. You have so many examples of it working. The same is true for tank swaps. If they're building an encounter that requires taunting at 4 stacks, the game should be better at giving players that information. True, but like, okay, I don't think you as Blizzard should decide like, hey, this is like private auras kind of. Like these are the auras, these are the debuffs that are going to show big on your screen. You as a player need to be able to choose the things that you think are important. Rather than just making things show up for tanks and things show up for DPS. Fights are more complicated than that. You should allow people to just have more agency. So yes, but big time on the buffs and debuffs, it has to be good. You can't be making those decisions. Stun and other crowd control diminishing returns should also be made more visible. Speaking of the tank thing, also taunt DR. Like that's, I don't know how many people actually deal with this because it's specifically a raid thing, but like taunt DR is so fucking annoying because you just don't even know when it's gonna happen. Like I guess if you play the game a lot and you do a boss a lot, you might like have a feeling it might be happening because you did an extra taunt where you normally don't do it. But the fact that the game doesn't tell you at all, and then it's basically like you use taunt with no way to know if it's going to work or not, and then it just doesn't work, and then you're just like, oh no, right? So just something on this second thing, but totally true. I remember when I was doing Mythic Plus back in Legion, we were playing a comp. We were playing triple Windwalker, so you just have like infinite stuns, right? Plus blood decay, plus other things. And we were running into stun DR problems doing stops and MDI keys. And then it was a super basic weak aura. It was like before people started like really using Plater well. And it just like showed a little like cooldown bar on the side of a nameplate. I wish I had an example of it. And it just showed, and it changed colors based on the stun DR. And it was like red when your stun wasn't going to work. And that was great, right? But that stuff should be built into the game. PvP add-ons might still tell you what classes you're facing, but won't tell you what cooldowns have been used. Yeah, that's the same thing up here, right? Probably just clarifying for PvP because it's a huge issue for them. All right, visual customization of nameplate style and scale will still be allowed, but conditional logic to change the way they look because of a buff or a debuff probably won't be. Visual customization of nameplate style and scale will still be allowed. So does that mean recoloring? But conditional logic to change the way they look because of a buff or a debuff. So what this means, I think, is if you guys have ever played Old Windwalker with Mark of the Crane, or Enhanced Shaman with Lashing Flames, or any class that requires a buff or a debuff on multiple targets, to like really start doing AoE, or like things you want to spread that aren't naturally being they're like, I'm assuming what they're like, they're not going to have you change, because those are fucking crazy good plater scripts when like, especially old Lashing Flames, that would be great. However, it sounds like you're still going to be able to do something that I actually just started doing this patch. I downloaded someone's plater script. I don't know who it is. Shout out whoever the fuck this is. It's probably a lot of them because it's just good. But like, when you go into a Mythic Plus dungeon, and I actually got to test this really well because I went in and I did like, I think I did like 20 dungeons or so, like 12s and 13s, like a month or two ago. And I had actually never seen these dungeons before. But because I had this plater script, it was so easy to just do it for the first time, because every like little mini boss, like this is the dangerous mob, this is the mob with a ton of health, had a pink nameplate. Every caster in a pack that had a really dangerous cast had a dark blue nameplate, or like health bar over their head. When it was like a less important caster, but still a caster, it was like light blue. Things that, you know, so like, just immediately, once you understood that logic, it just immediately made sense in your brain. You could go up to a pack you've never seen before and you already know what the fuck is up. Sounds like you have Jundies. Yeah, Jundies plater, I think, is what it is. Goated, very good plater script, right? At least the logic for nameplates is really strong. It sounds like that will still work. And that is something that I mean, I don't know how much it matters, but if you're going into a Mythic Plus dungeon for the first time and someone else is too, and you have that shit and they don't, you definitely have way better information on what's about to happen than they do. So I don't know if they should remove them. I think this is maybe the reason why they're not doing it is they don't feel like they can do it, which is, you know, of course you can do anything an add-on's doing. But maybe it's to like specifically, they don't want to fuck around with people's like collecting add-ons, like people farming mounts. Like maybe people want to change the nameplate colors of like mobs that drop mounts, and they don't want to fuck with anything. Cause like they really, I'm assuming, at least this is what he said in the interview, was he didn't want to fuck around with anyone's add-ons they use outside of combat, which I think is a good thing. So maybe this is that, but that's just one loophole I see. Auction house, quest helpers, gathering, and roleplay add-ons shouldn't be affected. Okay, same, or that makes sense. Blizzard intends to improve the base UI, cooldown manager. Yeah, I mean, cooldown manager. The cooldown manager, I maybe I'm stupid, but like, I feel like the cooldown manager should be... Okay, I shouldn't even say this, because like, I bet like someone who actually does this for a living is going to call me a total idiot, but like, I feel like the cooldown manager isn't that hard to do. Like, you just like have a row of things and you can add the spell ID and it should just... this is going to sound so stupid. I'm probably sound really naive because I don't even know how these actual add-ons work. But bro, cooldown manager working correctly and soon is really important, because I know a lot of people that if that worked and was easy to set up as like a week or a package, which that just doesn't seem that far off. Like they just has to be... And use the cooldown manager as an example. Okay, here's an example. And maybe this is not exactly how design works. Like maybe you just release things in bad states and then fix them. But I think that lowers the community's trust in you. We just reacted and listened to an Ian interview yesterday, which by the way was fascinating. It was not like an interview. It was like a presentation he did at a game developer conference. By the way, you should fucking listen to this if you haven't. It was really, really interesting. But one thing he talked about is like maintaining players' trust, which is super important. Obviously super important. He gave a lot of good examples for that. Okay. Why release the cooldown manager if you know it's trash? Like if there's a WoW developer that uses, and I know this is true, a lot of them that I know play the game, they fucking love the game, they use fucking weak aura packages like everybody else. If you're working at Blizzard and you're like, all right, we're going to release this cooldown manager, and you know what it's supposed to be and you use it and it's fucking bad, don't release it. Like make it good. Is like, I think all of this stuff, like, do not really, you're going to lose a lot of player trust. Like, do not release any of this shit until it's good. I gave them the advice when, at lunch after this thing, when we interviewed them. And I just told them like, hey, like, I remember when you announced private auras and we had meetings that day about how we were going to break this. You need to consult with these people, and before you even release this shit on the PTR, you can already have a much better idea. Have these people break what you're trying to do before you even put it out to us. And certainly don't ever release something UI related like the cooldown manager ever again, because there's just a way that people know that should work because of their experience with add-ons, and it just wasn't good enough. So I just think they should be very conservative with rolling this out, which they're saying they're not going to release this for a really long time. Great. But like, I don't know, quality has to be higher. The game could potentially be like, really, you could, if you try to release a lot of these too fast or at the same time, and immediately all these add-ons that people use are not available, and then they use the Blizzard alternative, and they are at or even close to the quality of the cooldown manager, this game will be fucking bad. Like, the game will be significantly worse to play than it is currently. And, I mean, obviously, that's not their intention. And there is positive benefits from doing this, right? But only if they do it right. So, take your time, do it right. W. Clarifying this initiative is still a work in process and won't be coming in patches. Yeah, it's going to take years. The changes are also unlikely to be implemented in Classic, of course. PC Gamer said, previously Blizzard experimented with private auras that could not be read by add-ons and weak auras, but players kept circumventing that with in-game macros and told the mods when players saw they had conditions that had been kept secret. The aura is private, but you can just make a separate macro that pipes the information in. Now, whoops, you've wiped because someone hit the wrong macro or typo in their macro is great. We've succeeded in making it even more frustrating. Let's never do this again. I'm glad they learned that lesson, but I knew this was going to happen the day they announced this, like 6 months before we even interacted with any content with private auras. Like, it was so obvious that this was going to happen. And like years later, this is their perspective. And like, obviously private auras failed, but it's not surprising that they failed because there were ways for it to be broken. It was just simply not the solution. Right. Okay. Wait, this will kill lower end cutting edge guilds. Yeah, I mean, like, add-ons and weak auras certainly carry less good players more than more sufficient players. But clearly what also needs to happen is the content needs to be designed differently with this stuff not being there. That is true. But how that's going to go the very first season this comes out, I think it'll have growing pains. But even though it'll have growing pains, I still think this is... By the way, I fully support them doing this. I think this is a great idea. I think it's going to take a long time. I hope they do it right. They need to do it right. They don't need to rush it. And they're aware of that, clearly. But like, I still think this is good for the game. Certainly good for the game. I'm a fan of this, but I still have reservations on how they would do it, right? Okay, that's cap. Multiple Race World First Raiders have text-to-speech reminders for every ability. What did I say that was cap? I said add-ons carry less good players more than good players. Both what you said and what I said can be true, right? Like, someone who's competing in the Race World First, even though they don't need the help as much as someone else, they have more cognitive, let's just say theoretically a better player will have more cognitive ability to handle not having the fight kill you, which it's trying to do, and also doing the most damage possible. But you're still going to take, even if it makes you 0.5% better, you're still going to have this thing handle this thing for you, right? That being said, if you remove all of the crazy customization that we are using, and then, by the way, everyone just downloads our fucking weak aura pack as soon as we're done and then uses it for their raid or uses echoes or something else, right? Or reloads, they're using the same thing we are using, no more, no less. That is going to help a player that has less cognitive ability or maybe doesn't play this game for a fucking job. It's going to help those people more. It is going to carry their performance more than someone who plays this game all the time and plays it at the highest level possible. You're going to have a bigger drop-off. When all this is gone, how much of it they bake into the game is possible? Let's just like say in this scenario right now, let's just say all add-ons are removed tomorrow and Blizzard does not have any replacements for all of them. The skill difference and like how much that's going to affect a like lower cutting edge guild versus like how much it's going to affect the people that are the very best at this game it is going to affect the lower performing players significantly more, because very simply a crutch is going to help someone that has lower skill significantly more than someone with much higher skill, because they have more cognitive ability to deal with this because they do it all the time, right? We would still... They help us, but they don't help us as much. Okay. Does that make sense for the guy who said that? I'm assuming not. I'm getting a not going to change your mind vibe, but hopefully it does. I thought I explained it. Okay. Improving the cooldown manager and base UI. Blizzard will also continue to improve the in-game cooldown manager, edit mode, and nameplate visibility, as well as other visual effects and audio cues throughout the game. That said, the game director questioned whether it was okay if future built-in versions were not necessarily as robust as current add-ons. So we know we're not going to replace a fully in-depth customizable add-on that you've been using for years and tailored to your personal gameplay with something that we have as an initial fixed offering. So they're saying the thing we're coming out with initially is not going to be better than the thing that has been being tailored and like perfected over 10 years. Which, by the way, I think that makes sense. I think you should get as close to that as possible though, right? Because I imagine 2 years after you release this shit, it's going to be better. I know a lot of people who make these add-ons, they're so fucking smart and they've spent 10 years of their life making this thing perfect. It is like offensive, honestly, for Blizzard to be like, yeah, we're just going to like fucking slam this shit in our game and it's going to be great. Like, it's so hard to compete with that. It's like these people's entire lives. But it needs to be as close as possible. And wait, then why release it then? Because there's a huge barrier to entry of convincing someone to play this game and then telling them to go online and download things for it when they should just be available in the game to begin with, if they're going to be available at all. Okay. But we're going to get a whole bunch of feedback in ways in which it would need to change. We need to add customization and improve it, and we need to make it feel like a reasonable substitute for a more advanced power user. Yeah. The goal is at the end of the day is to get to a point where if asked, hey, do I need add-ons to play? The answer is, well, they give you a lot of options to customize your experience, but no, it's up to you. Today, if we're being honest, we can't say that. True. Some of it is being guided by feedback to understand how we can bridge that gap for a majority of our players, and also to some extent accepting and hopefully getting folks to accept that 96% of perfect that it is 96% of perfect. Wait, someone in YouTube chat says, I think it's just a money grab by Blizzard. Sorry, I turned my head like a dog when you, what does that mean? Wait, I'm so confused. What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, like, I know I should just like read that comment and just like fucking move on with the rest of my stream. But like, it's stun locking me so insane that I turn my head like a dog, and I need to know what you mean by that. Chance Jones in YouTube, full first name, last name chatter. What do you mean by that? They see how much money these people make for these add-ons and they want in on it. So they create these in-game add-ons to bump the monthly payment up. Oh, so it's like a long play to increase the subscription cost. Like, guys, we did all this work on add-ons. Pay us more money, bro. Yet, wait, when was the last time they increased the subscription cost? Yeah, that's some conspiracy shit, I think. But W conspiracy, like, that at least makes more sense than the first thing you said. Like, I could tell you didn't just like make that shit the fuck up on the spot. Like, you had at least thought about that crazy shit before, which I can respect. I can respect some crazy shit. W tinfoil. All right, here we go. Disarming the race between add-ons and boss mechanics. While the goal is to reduce add-on capability, adding more baseline functionality is necessary to keep players from turning to ever more circuitous solutions. Okay. Circuitous. God damn, Ian. All right. Just like using macros to circumvent private auras, if boss warnings and ability timelines aren't available in-game, players might turn to outside resources like YouTube videos or pre-recorded sound files to providing audio countdowns timed at the start of a heavily scripted encounter. Oh yeah, you could do that, huh? You can have an add-on like the timer add-on right now, the timeline add-on, and all it does is generate an unlisted YouTube video for you, and you're supposed to click it at 10 seconds on the countdown, and then it just does the voice to speech or text to speech like call outs for you when you want them. Bro, that's the kind of cringe ass shit. That sounds so fucking annoying. But like, I don't know if you guys have used like the timeline add-on where you can like add little voice reminders for you mid-fight on like when to use your like raid defensive cooldowns or like when. Bro, that shit is insane. Like it makes you play better 100p, right? To where like that just being gone, like people are gonna want to keep it. People will do some shit like that. That actually but it sounds so annoying. It's not more cringe than pressing a macro because I got a shitty debuff. Well, we're not having a cringe competition. Like obviously that shit sucks too. I'm just saying that sounds annoying. Okay, here we go. Man, if I will say though, if they do all this and it just ends up being like who can do the craziest fucking workaround, private aura style, that will make what I am doing like way less fun. The idea is that this will force developers to get better about making mechanics visible and readable. Lethal cast should be better telegraphed and result in less kicks. At the end of the day, the game should be just as easy or difficult as it is right now, with the goal of keeping a similar number of wipes and success rates across each difficulty, but putting problems and their solutions into players' hands rather than weak auras. Like I said, this is the goal. Like if they can do this, massive W for the game. I think it's going to be incredibly challenging, and I'm glad that they understand that it is going to take actually years to even potentially do something like this. But I also think they should change their scope a little bit. Like, it's possible that I'm not a game dev. I don't really know exactly how it's going back to this quote. We know we're not going to be able to replace a fully in-depth customizable add-on that you've been using for years and tailored to your personal gameplay with something that we have as an initial fixed offering. Okay, but I honestly think no matter how long it takes, you should get as close as you can possibly fucking get to this customizable add-on, which I know is hard. It's not easy. Like, people saying like Blizzard can just like fucking rip this shit that these really smart fucking people have been making these add-ons as the only thing they've done for like 10 to 15 years in some cases, and just like rip it into the game. Like, it would be straight up like insulting to assume that they could do that, straight up. But goddamn, you've got to get as close as possible. Like, I hope they learn from the cooldown manager that like the cooldown manager actually looked really cool, and I bet it will be good, but its form and its release and how it is currently is actually, it's like unusably bad.
these other things that you're implementing cannot be that bad. They have to be better. I think you should increase your quality expectation of initial release significantly if you don't want players to immediately not trust any of this. Okay.
Bro, isn't it like cheaper? Okay, again, this is a I definitely don't know how this works moment. So like if you work in game design and you and you're listening to this and this makes you want to pull your hair out, I'm just in advance. I'm so sorry. Like, it is my fault. I probably am stupid. But like, is it not a faster and easier and probably cheaper solution to just straight up fucking buy this shit? Just like what you were trying to do Hakili recently. Just fucking hire that guy. He's been doing this shit his whole life. That has to be better than trying to do it natty. Or like at least license them as a consultant or basically pay them for the add-on they've made and then build it into the game. Again, apologies in advance. Well, now not in advance. Like if you hear that and you're like, God, you're so fucking stupid. Here's why you're wrong. I'm probably wrong, man. But it just sounds like the quickest, cheapest, and easiest solution to do all of this is to take the things that I know these people are very fucking smart that have done this already. Just fucking make them make it for WoW. Just put it in the game, man. I don't know. Maybe they did, and maybe the add-on people said no. Okay, so I don't know if that's true or not. I think they did not ask them. Because, like, the Hakili guy's announcement, when he was like, my shackles have been freed or whatever, like, he definitely did not know of this shit until it was getting announced. And, like, the reality is, Blizzard's gonna make these guys lose their jobs anyway. Like, if they're gonna build DBM into the game like they said they're gonna do, they're going to make DBM not work. And that add-on and any kind of support they get for that add-on is gone. So like they're basically forced to take any deal Blizzard would give them, right? I have a very strong stance that if they want to do this at all, they need to buy these people or they need to buy their time. But at least if they bought their time and hired them as a consultant, they will at least save a bunch of time. Max, you are correct. My initial guess as a project manager is perhaps some existing employees feel outsourcing this project to the add-on developers would threaten their current role and rally against it. Maybe I could see that. I could also see like someone who's tasked with making one of these things or a group of people making one of these things, them having consulting once a week for a couple months with people who've done this before might make their jobs a lot easier and they still don't lose their job because they still have to make it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm just saying shit at the moment. I'm good at that. I'm just fucking saying stuff right now. But let's see what they said here. Our goal is to deliver a baseline, consistent level of difficulty that meets players' expectations, of course. I've seen discussion of whether WoW is harder than it used to be. If you measure that by player success rates, then the answer to that is no. I mean, obviously, it's relatively gotten harder over time because players have gotten better. He is right about the success rate thing. We might tune a heroic end boss for ahead of the curve to be something that's going to take a couple dozen attempts for a guild that's in the core audience. What it takes to hit that mark has continually increased in terms of complexity because our players have gotten more sophisticated. Yep, happens in every game. Very true. With this move, Blizzard hopes to dismantle the arms race between add-on developers and boss mechanics. A fight like Blood Queen, Lanathel, and Icecrown Citadel had one simple mechanic. Who to bite when you had a vampiric lust and were about to be mind controlled. That ramped in difficulty over the course of the fight, and it would have been trivialized by a combat weak aura. Yeah, but like, okay, that's a weird... They should have used a more recent example because also like Blood Queen, Lanathel is like a dog shit fucking easy boss now. Because it's just not 15 years ago, you know? Like, if you didn't have a weak aura and you ever wiped to just not biting the person you're supposed to bite, you would just be killed in combat. You know what I mean? Like, you would be yelled at by everyone. It's just too fucking easy. I'm even old. Like, I'm old as fuck, right? But, like, that example misses me. You know what I'm saying? Okay, anyways. No stress, no confusion, no need for communication, no need for backups. A fight that had exciting, frantic moments in 2009, 2010 has transformed into something pretty ho-hum. Yeah. Weak auras make fights easier, yeah. The idea that this will force developers into making better and more mechanics visible and reasonable. Lethal cast should be better telegraphed, and it may result in less kicks required a given pack or a reduction in the number of bosses that place random damage rolls on the ground. A mechanic that a team has come to lean on because add-ons can't predict. At the end of the day, the game should be just as easy as difficult. Yeah. I think, frankly, this will stop letting us off the hook when we fail to do so. Yes. There's definitely no fallback. Now, if you're riding a Katamari ball on sticks, what is that? Is that what it's called when you're a trash ball? Bro, he had to rip the, like, full government name of the ball. That's crazy. On sticks, and if you run into one of these 3 nameplates, you wipe the raid. But there are 90 things on screen. Good luck visually parsing that. Wait, you've never played Katamari Damacy? Yeah, I mean, obviously not, bro. I was probably hanging out with girls back then. No, it's probably a great game. There are nameplate attachments and things in the community that have come with help to solve that problem. We should have solved that problem. You fucking nerd. Our classes weren't designed under the assumption that you're going to have unpredictable movements every few seconds, making those encounters less fun for caster characters. We just want more variety. And wait, our classes weren't designed under the assumption that you're going to have unpredictable movements every few seconds, making those encounters less fun for caster characters. We just want more variety. What does this mean? I mean, you kind of do. Like, isn't procs that you can cast while moving like clearly designed from casters to make this easier? Or does he mean initially? Or is he saying we should just give casters more instant cast spells? Give warlocks KJ's cunning back? I mean, high key, you should do that because mages exist. High key. I don't know if everything needs to be like BM Hunter permanent movement, but like the fact that BM Hunter does exist and Mage does exist, you could do. I don't know what that has to do with any of the rest of this shit though. The toughest modern bosses with mechanics that require players to clump up or head to specific spots might give a few more seconds to respond or have fewer spots to go in a world without cab. Yeah. Okay. It's if we know it's being solved for you and you're just being told to run to diamond, how is that challenging? Facts. How do we make it challenging? The only way is to give you 2.5 seconds so that you need some movement boost. You're taking a warlock 8 from point A to point B because otherwise anyone could do this. Yeah, okay, cool. I think we give a major takeaway from this, because even though I had this conversation with him and I literally suggested this to his face already, my biggest takeaway is if you want any chance of doing this without everyone in the community thinking that it's not good enough, you just have to hire these people. And it has to be. There's probably some other shit that makes it harder to do. I don't really know how that works, but if it's possible to do, it would certainly be the fastest, the highest quality, and most successful way to implement this is to just fucking hire these people. Anyways, Max, check THD's post about the Hikili dev. What if these guys can't work in the US? That turns into a big issue. True. A lot of these add-on developers do not live in the US. I don't know about how working in the US works, but I'm assuming, especially recently, not easy. What did THD's thing say? Let's see. Okay, the Hikili dev in a Reddit thread said, Hikili dev here, just waiting for any communication from Blizzard outside of these vague interviews. Yeah, like, okay, I know this is going to only farm truths and bastes and things from Twitch chat, but for people that actually work in this industry, I'm putting myself out here. I know that you're going to think I'm an idiot for suggesting this because for some reason this just could never work and I'm an idiot for even suggesting it. But like at the bare minimum, communicating with these people is going to save you so much fucking time. And knowing them, I just know they're going to be willing to do this. Like the reason they made these add-ons is because they wanted something in a game that they love and they wanted to make it better for them. That is why they made these add-ons, all of them. So they want WoW to succeed. So they're likely to want to help you. I don't know. Just seems like a no-brainer. True and based. You know what I mean? All right, that's pretty much it. I haven't heard a lot of other takes on this, but I assume thing was announced in WoW, so people mad. But I think there's a lot of reasons to be skeptical. I think completely reasonable take you could have is like, I'm so skeptical that they're going to be able to pull this off. And I think that's true if you think this is coming out next patch. I think that's true if you think this is coming out in 2 years. I think being skeptical is totally fair. Mainly being that the cooldown manager is the first thing, at least, or it's the most relevant thing recently that is trying to do anything like these things are trying to do, and it fucking sucks. So naturally people are like, how do I know that this shit isn't gonna fucking suck? Because the thing that I use as an add-on is good, you know? And this is a lot of stuff. This is like huge, right? And again, important, not coming out for years, but it's hard, man. Could Liquid right now go into a raid and clear it natty, 0 boss mod help? What do you mean, like this late in farm? Yeah, of course. I mean, like, basically the question is like, how much longer do you think the race would have took? A few bosses in particular without any mods would have taken a while. Like Styx would have been way harder. The jails, bro. Imagine doing jails in the last phase of Muggsy without an assignment thing. Holy shit. That would have like tripled the wipes in that phase. But also, like, if you're doing that full natty, that mechanic doesn't look like that, right? So it's really hard to tell. But like doing current raids with no weak auras when they're designed clearly for weak auras, like, would we clear it? Yes. Would it have taken longer? Oh yeah. There's a Dratnos video on it. Probably won't watch the Dratnos video. Dratnos has objectively like the best takes about WoW. Like, if you're listening to this right now, you should turn off my stream and just go listen to what he says, because I think he's really smart, but also he just plays the game every day and fucking loves the game. That's just, I don't, you know. So you should listen to him. But I don't really want to listen to his take on YouTube, which I'm sure he has, because I'm just going to hear it from him when we record our podcast, like tomorrow or something. So I don't want to like hear that shit twice. I want it to be natty. I want to hear that shit natty. But as usual, I imagine we think decently similarly. He usually has like a little bit more nuanced, in-depth feeling on like how this will actually affect people than I do, naturally. But usually we see things the same way. A Mirdrasil would never be cleared without add-ons. That's such an interesting raid to use as an example. What about a Mirdrasil makes you feel that way? Because like Tindril, add-ons didn't do fucking anything. You had to do, bro, you think an add-on could have helped you with 3-second seeds? The hardest part about that whole raid, add-ons didn't do fucking anything. And then the last boss, you use like the macro solution with the first phase intermission, where you like macro and it split your sides. We didn't have that for like the first 3 times we got out of that phase. Like success chance closer to like 40% initially, then much higher than that when you use the macro. But if we did that 100 times, our success chance would have been, I mean, we still would have still killed the boss. And then like macros and weak auras didn't do anything for the end of the fight. So like the 2 hardest bosses, at least, I think a Mirdrasil, as opposed to other raids, would have actually had very little, relatively very little add-on carrying. Like for example, I think like Soaken Court would have been a lot harder. I think Ansurek, certainly. Brood Twister. Bro, Brood Twister, no weak aura. Jesus Christ, that boss would have sucked. Smolderon. Bro, we did the like the little balls that you're kiting around. We did those natty no weak aura in testing. That is a perfect example of something you would do right natty 90% of the time, but 99 with a weak aura, so you use a weak aura. Archimond HFC, no add-on weak aura. Paragon did it world second. They had add-ons and weak auras, but they didn't use one for the thing that you are referring to. Someone in the Wowhead comments, just stop messing with add-ons and fix the game instead. Literally what they're doing. Yeah, that's literally what they're doing. I mean, there's people that complain about this all the time, but the reality is, and this sucks for Blizzard, I think they're doing the right thing, but like, it's got to be so annoying to hear so many people complain about like you need to like remove add-ons from this game. And I just know so many of those people are reading this, which is them doing the closest thing possible to what they want, and they probably just hate it. Because I think they just hate everything. I don't think that's the majority, but, you know, pretty loud minority that is always like that with anything Blizzard related. Max, I think people forget how much more the player skill on Liquid Echo is compared to the general population. Yeah, but like, I don't blame them for that, because how would they know, right? It's pretty easy to just like raid whenever you get off work and then just be like, oh, well, these guys fucking, if I raided all the time every day, I'd be, you just don't know, right? It's not, it's fine. Would you do Sepulcher Natty? Halandris and Anduin and Jailer insane? Jailer would have been so fucking hard, Natty. Halandris? I feel like Halandris may be one of the hardest and best bosses they've ever made where weak auras like didn't do fucking anything. Like just the visual on the bomb in game is what almost everyone used. Like, yes, there was a weak aura on your screen that like showed you and your partner stacks, but the reality is when you dropped your bomb, you just picked it up the next time you saw the bomb go on the ground. And you know what I mean? Like, Anduin, we didn't use a weak aura at all for Blasphemy in P1. We used raid markers for the positioning of like the orbs in P3. Am I missing something where Anduin is like, oh no, weak auras? So Anduin, like stop weak auras were really good for like the souls, like CC rotation. It's actually one of the first CC rotation bosses. But I don't know. I think at a high level, at least, I think most, like Anduin already killed guilds. I think without that, it would have killed a lot more. I think at a high level though, you would just know that you're always the third like stun. I don't think that mattered too much. Jailer though, dude, Jailer without weak auras. I mean, just P1 fucking Jailer bombs. I mean, probably one of the hardest mechanics ever without weak auras. I mean, / borderline bullshit. Just like you would, I mean, just straight up, if you did not have weak auras, you could not have done that. They would have had to be changed. I don't give a monkey's crap about how good the world first guilds are. I care about whether us peasants have a hope of getting cutting edge. Yeah, I mean, I was just answering a question someone asked me. They were like, what would you guys have done in this situation? I wasn't like saying we can only look at this from our perspective. The reality is the closer you are to cutting edge than you are to world first, you are going to be affected more negatively by this, because naturally the less invested a player is, if you're using the same crutches like fight weak auras as everyone else is, you are relying on those more than someone who is better than you. That is just objectively true, right? So if you guys are using those, now I think there's a lot of late cutting edge raiders who barely use anything, right?
or do use them because they feel like they have to, or someone just, it's just pretty normal now for people to like, we release the liquid weak aura pack and you just like fucking download that shit, you know? But yeah, those people will be, the first time this happens, like obviously they have to make fights differently because of this, and there will be growing pains there, but during those growing pains, the people closer to like late patch cutting edge are by far the more affected people by this, yeah. Would these changes end up stopping or breaking things like Warcraft logs? Great question. Great question. I don't know. I remember during that conversation with Ian, we talked about how they don't think you should need to download a damage meter to see damage in game. So they were talking about building in a damage meter and making details not work. But if details can't read the combat log, how can you upload the combat log? Does the combat log no longer given to you? But like logging's built into the game. So I would be willing to bet that there's like an extremely low chance that that would be the case. And I also think that would be a bad decision. So I don't think they'll do that. Maybe only post-fight? Yeah, maybe, yeah. But again, this is years away anyway. But yeah.